Thank you for listening to Prayer Privilege. My name is Ada, and in today's episode, we will be discussing when people they seek to deter you from the truth of God. And I think this is a very important subject to discuss. It is something that I have been experiencing, and there are so many aspects of how this can happen or ways that this can be done that we just have to open our eyes to and also, of course, pray into. So I want to start the opening scripture on Galatians chapter 5 and verse 7. And I'm actually in Ephesians right now, but I did finish Galatians, and this was one of the revelations that came in for me. So let's go ahead and read that. And it says, "You were running well. Who hindered you from continuing to obey the truth? This sort of persuasion does not come from the one calling you." So I did do some research on this particular scripture and in some other translations. And if we look on verse 8, it says that or in verse 9, it says, "A little leaven ferments the whole batch of dough." I am confident that you who are in union with the Lord will not come to think otherwise, but the one who is causing you trouble, whoever he may be, will receive the judgment he deserves. And in looking in the New Living Translation, it reads in verse 8, "It certainly isn't God who called you to freedom. This false teaching is like a little yeast that spreads through the whole dough." So, and also, like, I did take a look at one more, and it was saying that it is not done by God who called you. And the other translation I read says that this false teaching is deflecting you from the course of obedience. So all these translations are basically saying essentially the same thing in different ways, but it's saying that all it takes is a little bit of being around the wrong doctrine, around the people, talking about the wrong things to delay our course or delay our relationship with God or our spiritual growth, our spiritual timeline, our spiritual obedience. And sometimes people will, and it's not necessarily all the time things that they are into themselves, but it could just be them trying to question us and what we believe. Oh, do you truly believe that the Bible is real? Do you truly believe that what these people are saying, or that these men wrote the Bible, and that just we know the different forms that it comes in, but it's all just to be a distraction, to cause us to be deterred from the truth of God. And that's why this is one of those instances where I'm like, it's giving David, because that's why I love where it says in verse 10, it's saying that in one of the translations I was reading was saying, like, it says that I am trusting the Lord to keep you from believing false teachings. And the one that I am reading, it says, I am confident that you are who in union with the Lord will not come to think otherwise, but the one who is causing you trouble, whoever it may be, will receive the judgment. So this is letting us know when people seek to deter you, to add confusion, to make you question the beliefs that you know are true within God, God is going to exercise judgment on that. And that leads me, we early on with it, that leads me to the prayer point for this episode is asking Jehovah to protect us and give us discernment of any false teachings or people around us who are involved in false teachings who may be deterring us from the truth of Him, and asking Him to help us to remove anything that is, and to not second guess or have a double mind of the truth of Him. So I think, this is something that every believer experiences, that people are going to come to you and they're going to say, well, is that true? Or how do you know that's true? Or how do you know that's real? And that's why faith is a huge thing. Us spending time with God, like the more we spend time with Jehovah, the more faith we're going to have, the more confidence we are going to get in knowing Him, The only way you'll be able to know him and know for sure and know, hey, is this true? Is by spending time with him. It's just like a regular human. The more we get around people, the more we're going to find out what they stand for, who they are. And I think that this particular tactic is one of the biggest tactics of the enemy, is that people are around us or planted around us to seek to deter us from what we know is true. Even me, how I've told y'all with just my experience with New Age, being in a season where, we hear people talk about it often, about the Israelites, right? When they were in their wilderness season, how they weren't supposed to be in that season for as long as they were, but it got extended for 40 years. And it was due to certain things that they did, right? And so it made me think about it, like, what is it in my season that I have done to extend it to where it's now longer than what it was supposed to be? And it's a good question all of us should ask. And I think for me personally, as y'all know, I have expressed to y'all in the past that being in new age, just new age practices and things, I truly do believe that's one of the things that has delayed my path with coming into true relationship with Jehovah, because with confusion that you get, right? You're delving into learning more things and more beliefs with whatever that confusion is. And the longer you're tied up with that confusion, the longer you're delayed from the true knowing of God. And so it's super important for our eyes to be open to this when people come around us trying to question. Especially, you'll notice it more the more you get closer to Jehovah and just learning about Jesus and everything. You'll notice that's when people come around you saying, oh, like, why are you changing? Why are you doing things different? Do you really believe this? It's going to come, and that's how you know you on to something. You are on to something when you see that happening. It is not happening for no reason. Trust. One of the scriptures I also want to emphasize in this episode is James 1 and chapter 1 and verse 6, where it says, but let him keep asking in faith, not doubting at all, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven by the wind and blown about. So this scripture is not in just the essence of asking God for things. This is also in the essence of having faith for God to just be God. And with that, we have to remember that when people question us, when people are wondering, okay, well, how do you know if this is true? How do you know that God is real? We don't want to start to doubt that God is real just because we're being questioned that. And we don't want our beliefs to move like the waves of the sea, like it's mentioning. And so to go back to what I was discussing about extending a certain circumstance or season because we're being distracted or deterred with false doctrine, it's important in instances where we feel that rising up to pray for soundness of mind, to pray for deliverance against temptation, and to not be double-minded. Jehovah is eternity. He is the one and only true God. So we have to, when people do seek to try to, like it says, just deter us and, take us off of our course of obedience, we have to remember the more that we get into that questioning and double-mindedness and getting deterred with false doctrine, the longer it's really going to take for us to draw closer to him or know him on a level we've never known him, the longer it's going to take for us to walk truly into the alignment for the life that he has for us and everything else. So that's why I mentioned that, how we can extend certain seasons, or how, like in my case, with me getting deterred and veered off course with false doctrine, all that time that I was delving into that, I could have been X amount of years deep with God already. So it's just something to really think about. And it's something that I want y'all, it was on my spirit to give to y'all as someone experiencing it, and also with it being so prevalent as the times get closer and closer to Revelations, that we keep an eye on this and we remember that we are on the course of obedience when we are drawn closer to Jehovah, when we are exhibiting the fruitages of the Spirit, when we are praying, we're on the course of obedience. And the very last thing I would like to include in this is just to pray for those. Pray for the very people who you notice try to dig into your truth and find holes in your belief system. Pray for those ones and pray that they will truly know the love of Jehovah, really know the love of the true God, and develop a firm belief system in Him. That's one of the things I wanted to make sure to include in this, because that's truly all that is needed at the end of the day. Is that when people feel like, sometimes when people feel like their belief system is not strong or they don't really have a firmly rooted belief system, they like to poke holes in others. So we just want to pray for them and just pray that they would develop the fruitages of the Spirit. And I would like to leave y'all with just an encouraging scripture. This is in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 1 and 2. And it says, "Now I remind you, brothers, of the good news that I declared to you, which you also accepted, and for which you have taken your stand. Through it, you are also being saved, if you hold firmly to the good news I declared to you, unless you became believers for nothing." My name is Ada. Remember, it is not pretty privilege, it is prayer privilege, and prayer is a privilege.